Well, welcome back to another episode of WTF Walk the Floors. I'm Stephanie Leger with First Rate Hospitality, and I'm here with my co-host Michele Kline of Kline Hospitality. We're very excited because we have Andy Ginsburg on with our show today from Resorts World, and we're going to be talking about the public area aspect of Housekeeping Week. Thank you for being on our show, Andy.
Thank you for having me.
So, Andy, tell us a little bit about you. We know that you have an incredible journey when it comes to your career, and it's always enlightening for us to allow others on the other side to hear about this journey so they can keep going. I know that you can start low and move up and move on, and I just think it's motivating and compelling. So share a little bit of that, and then we'll take a deep dive into what housekeeping, what public areas, what do you do in your world at Resorts World?
Okay, well, thank you very much. So I started out in this business in 1980 as a bellman with Marriott Hotels with no career aspects in sight. And 43 years later, I'm still doing this. I spent 5 years with Marriott, 9 years with Hyatt Hotels, and in 1992, I moved out west to California, still with Hyatt. And then in 94, I came to Las Vegas, and I've been in Las Vegas now for 28 years. I've been all through a lot of the properties here. I've had an opportunity to open 8 hotels of my career. Here specifically in Las Vegas, I was at Tropicana. I was out at Prim, Treasure Island, Mirage. I opened Aria. I reopened Bellagio after the closure from the pandemic. And then I also opened up MGM National Harbor and MGM Springfield during my travels with that career. So here I am with no fault of my own 43 years later. And I've kind of been in housekeeping, if you want to call it that, since 1988.
Wow, that's amazing. And then, so talk to us a little bit of what your role is here at Resorts World in the public areas as the director.
So the easiest way to describe what I do or what my department does is what we don't do. We don't clean guest rooms. That's our housekeeping department. And we don't clean kitchens. That's stewarding. About 95% of anything else that needs to be cleaned, whether it's front of house, back of house, or exterior, is going to fall under EVS, under public area.
That's so fantastic. And there's a lot of people in the industry that always say that I started in housekeeping, and it's not true.
Correct.
I actually started in public areas. So I understand your world very well. And when you said what we do, explaining what we don't do, but then I'm thinking, you actually do a lot more than it's even part of what you should be doing. So I say that the EVS department are those, magical elves that are out there that no one knows they're actually out there, but they're really on top of everything. What would you say has been maybe one of the most challenging moments or one of those mouth-opening moments in your career within the public areas?
So one of my biggest challenges is designers. And designers come up with some really neat stuff, like behind you, those escalators that go on for miles that we don't know how to clean the outside of them. So it's actually makes the job much more interesting and fun, finding the challenges of how to clean difficult things. It's very easy to shampoo carpet or wax a floor. But how do we do this, or how do we clean that? Or like the ceiling in the district that's going to need to be cleaned very soon is 82 feet tall. How are we going to clean that? So coming up with the challenges and then seeing one of the nice things in my role is I get to see immediate results. I get to see what the end result looks like. So I love the challenge of anything that's difficult.
That's so great.
Oh, yeah.
And how would you say, I've always found it harder to keep team members in the EVS department motivated versus in housekeeping, because I feel like in housekeeping you're able to clean your room, you look at the finished product, you close the door and you move on. In the public areas, there's a lot of areas where maybe you're assigned to a specific section where you clean it, you turn around, and it's dirty again. So I find it hard at times, or harder, to keep engaged and motivated those team members that are on the EVS department than the ones that are on the room side of our world. So what would you say is like one or two tips or tricks that you can share with our audience?
Well, first, one thing that I've always preached, and it doesn't matter what department I've worked in, but specifically since I've been in the public area for many, many years now, is I make it known from day one that the team is a million times more important than I'll ever be. My role is to approve your vacation. I can't clean these buildings without my team, and I love every one of them. And I make sure that they know that, and I make sure that's emulated through the supervision staff. But I do want to correct you, well, not necessarily correct you, but I want to challenge you on one thing. So it's interesting. So I was in housekeeping before I got into public area. And I enjoy personally public area more than housekeeping. I find housekeeping to be a little bit more like a factory.
Yep.
And
True.
my biggest labor source typically comes from housekeeping employees that want to transfer into my world. So, but housekeeping, EVS, I mean, we're really one and the same. We really should just be one department. I guess, in Las Vegas in particular, with these huge, hotels that, where we have hundreds and hundreds of employees, I kind of get it. But growing up in the Marriott and Hyatts of the world, I had housekeeping, and then we had this little division with lobby porters, and it was, a couple folks. Now it's a whole department, a whole, part of a different division. So it makes it fun.
And how many employees do you have in your department?
This operation here is a little smaller than what I've typically had. I have 190 employees. We have a lot of outsourcing here too. That I have a lot of vendors that I manage to help us along with our efforts.
And that's also too a huge part of engagement as well, is especially when you are working with those third-party vendors and making sure that they're still feeling part of the team as well, because you as the guest don't realize that they may not be from the property. They might be from an outsourced company as well. And you want to making sure that everyone feels inclusive too.
That's correct. And we refer to our vendors as our partners. And we do some things different here at Resorts World specifically that I haven't seen in the past at other properties because we do have a lot of vendors here. So we consider them our partners.
That's great.
That's lovely. So Andy, can you share with us a little bit of what Housekeeping Week means to you?
So, again, this is a 24-hour operation. I always tell everybody we work in a hospital. Housekeeping, while it's a 24-hour department, they're pretty much day shift oriented. But the whole aspect of cleaning, I think, I've always enjoyed cleaning. I was a clean kid, and I think that as much as my passion is for how I want my building to look, we take a lot of pride in our buildings. I want to give that back to the employees, and so we always talk to our staff about how pretty these buildings are and look at all the marble we put in. That's all great. But if the buildings aren't clean, if they're not being serviced, then it doesn't really matter. And it's very important that we thank and give back to the employees and make sure they understand, because our cleaning army is at Resorts World is probably about 800 people strong when you factor in housekeeping and stewarding as well. We're a big chunk. And like I said, we do have a nice saying here that everybody works in EVS here.
That's great. And I think communication is also too a huge factor as well. So saying, there's so many ceiling lights, and it's not like you can just go and change the light bulb like you could in a room, but there's, I think, a lot of communication and planning that goes into it as a team between the different shifts, to making sure that, okay, by the time the guest wakes up the next morning, all of a sudden it's like reappears, the lights are back on and working.
Yeah,
and
so
in EVS, as opposed to in housekeeping, where most of the magic happens during the day, in EVS, the magic happens at night, where everybody went to sleep.
Yes. I call my overnight shift the money shift.
Oh, yeah.
That's where we do the cleaning. And
absolutely.
We have a lot of really good dedicated employees. We've put a lot of time into training and getting the right equipment. So yeah, it is. But yeah, the overnight shift is definitely the party here.
Wonderful. And so, talk to us a little bit what you have going on for Housekeeping Week, what you're doing in your department with the public area.
So we started out with Monday morning. We had donuts all the shifts. Today we're doing root beer floats.
Oh,
Tomorrow we
fun.
have a bunch of snacks, popcorn, Takis, things like that. Thursday we have T-shirts, and Fridays we're doing we have a bunch of gift cards we're going to raffle off on Friday.
Nice.
That is so fantastic. So where are all the snacks? Because we're actually on property and we can
Okay.
find our way to the employee dining room if we have
Come on
to.
down. Come on down.
This
Well,
is
thank
great.
you.
And it's great too how we've been interviewing other resorts and making sure that you're including all of the shifts, and especially how we were
Yes.
just talking about the overnight shift is where a lot of the magic happens. But I think that sometimes you forget when you're doing the planning, you're so used to focusing on your AM, and then PM's getting the leftovers or overnights getting the leftovers, but you want to making sure that you're keeping all of the shifts equally to build up that engagement.
Yep. This morning at 4:30 a.m. we were doing root beer floats for the grave team.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so wonderful. Andy, tell me one thing. Do you have a chance to recruit from other departments, those leaders that run the other departments during Housekeeping Week to come and celebrate your teams?
Yes, it's broadcast property wide. We have banners out here in the hallway for both of us, and Housekeeping and EVS in this particular property. We're right next to the TDR, the team dining room, so everybody gets to see us and hear all the fun and games. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
That's so wonderful. Andy, thank you so very much. It's a pleasure to know what Resorts World is doing on the other side, to know that you have leaders from all departments being involved in this very special celebration for the team members that work really, really hard in our hotels, and that we sometimes take a little bit for granted if we're not really in tune with what they do and how hard the work is. So we are super grateful. This place looks amazing.
Yes.
Congrats on everything
you.
you're doing on the public spaces. And I can only imagine how shiny your back of the house hallways look right now. And
Thank you.
thanks for hosting us. Thanks for being part of the show and for helping us deliver the message to our audience of the importance of celebrating these team members at least 1 week out of the year.
It's my pleasure, and thank you for thinking of me.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.